All right, guys, give me 1 second so I can make my camera work. I don't know why it's not working. All right, there we go. We have it working. All right. I apologize for that. Literally, I started streaming and it wanted me to install an update. So everyone knows how that is when they're trying to do something important, whether it's a meeting or whatever, and your computer decides to say it's time to update your computer or your operating system or download an update. So it happens. I apologize. So I'll put a little timestamp, like technical difficulties, like skip to whatever timestamp to for the actual start of the live. So for those of you that are watching this, I appreciate it. Sorry for the technical difficulties. This is one of the cons of doing lives that stuff like that happens. But let's go ahead and I apologize. Like past couple weeks have just been really busy. I've started my new role for my job. So that's been taking a lot of time, lots of early mornings, and then I get back from work and I'm just tired and I have other stuff I need to do as well. Been kind of slacking on a lot of other stuff, but hopefully I kind of get accustomed to the role in the next couple weeks. So I will try to shoot for my normal schedule of Tuesday, Thursday nights. Stuff may happen. I might only do one live a week, but at the very least, I'm going to try to do one live. So that's kind of an update for that. Let's go ahead and kind of hop into the topic at hand. And this one is a good one just because I have experience. I know lots of people in the industry as well that have been in the industry for probably over close to a decade plus. It is debunking summer sales. Now, this is a really big topic, especially it's interesting. It kind of started in Utah just because kind of the whole context of how it started was as members of the church, there's lots of members of the church in Utah, obviously. And what the guys, typically guys do, but girls do this as well, or they have the option to. So we go on 2 year missions to foreign places around different countries around the world and also to different states in the United States. And we go out and we essentially preach the gospel, teach people about Jesus Christ. And typically, how we do that is by knocking on doors and talking to random people. So you very quickly learn a lot of social skills, how to start conversations, and also how to essentially. And I don't want this to paint it in a bad way. And I think people demonize the word sales in a sense, but essentially you're there to persuade, obviously with the spirit. And I'm not going to get into all to the nuances, but at the end of the day, you're trying to persuade or teach people about Jesus Christ and kind of gospel teachings, the church teachings. And you come back from your mission and you don't have a lot of money. You're a college kid typically, and this is where summer sales comes in. And you go through the whole recruiting process. And I'm actually going to go break down the whole recruiting process just because I think this is a really good video. There's lots of misconceptions, both like good things about summer sales and then bad things about summer sales that are like kind of ugly. And it's there's a lot of people that have lots of bad experiences with it, so they just kind of trash it, which is it's not it's doing it injustice, I think, just because coming from someone who actually had a very good experience and kind of went through the process the correct way, just because I do know a lot of people can get screwed over, and a lot of it is being naive. Of course, being like a 20-year-old or 21-year-old to come back from your mission and your friend from your mission contacts you like, hey man, what's how you been? The old age old trick. Let's meet up for lunch. Trust me, I've done this many times myself, so I am not free of the persecution when it comes or the slander when it comes to that kind of stuff. But everyone knows what it means nowadays, just because if you live in Utah, especially in the Provo, like Utah County area, there's no chance that you haven't gone full 4 years of school or lived in that area for 4 years and not have been contacted by someone saying, "Hey, let's meet up and let's talk about summer sales." That's just like it's impossible. I will pay you like $10,000, and you will probably not find one person. Like females, different story. Males, 100%. You will not find one person that's been there an extended period of time and not got talking to about summer sales. But this, like I said, I'm coming from a pretty good experience I did for 3 summers, and this is just like my take on it. Obviously, you can get other takes from other people, but I think I have a good sense of it just because I had a good experience, and it's a means to an end. For some people, if you're really good at it, it can be a career. I'd probably say for like 80%, 90% even of people, it's just like a stop on the way. It's a job to do during college. And it's a really good job. Don't get me wrong on that. But it's not going to really turn into a career. And there are both pros and cons to it, just like any career. Like even my career and what I'm doing, like there are pros and cons to it. So people that say there are zero cons to it are lying to you. And people that say there are zero pros to it are also lying to you. So the truth always meets somewhere in the middle. And unfortunately, this is in any topic that you hear about, whether it be politics, about food, or uh, dating stuff, any type of discussion about any topic, there's going to be people that are 100% against it, and then there's people that are 100% blind, and it's like, oh, it's the best thing ever, and there's no downsides to it. So I am here to give you the information. I will give kind of my opinion on certain things, but this, take it with a grain of salt. Is just my opinion. I'm here just to give you the information, give you clarity, give you transparency as well, just because I think nowadays there is a lot more transparency kind of earlier on in the days, not so much. So, yeah, people definitely got screwed over because they didn't know about stuff. So, I will start out from the beginning. And yeah, if anyone wants to know more about summer sales, kind of like the process and the ins and outs of it, let send them this live in this video and have them give it a watch, and then you can determine if it's a correct decision for you. All right, let's go ahead and start with kind of the beginning process. So typically you have a friend reach out to you. It's called the recruiting process. So the friend reaches out to you, or anyone, someone meets you on the street or whatever. I know people that do cold contacting for their summer sales recruiting, but essentially someone wants to meet with you. Hey, let's talk about what you're doing this summer, or let's catch up or whatever, and you'll talk about that. Some people are very upfront about it. Other people are not very upfront about it. And honestly, I don't have a problem with someone like catching up, and especially if it's just them, like one on one, I think it's fine. If it's just like, hey, let's meet up for lunch or whatever, and you meet up for lunch, and then the person's intending to talk to you about it, I think that's fine. That's just like anything. I don't think you necessarily have to be like super upfront about it if it's like a friend basis. If it's something like, hey, come, like, let's meet up, we have food, and then you like also schedule like, hey, my like manager's gonna be there, but you don't like tell the person you're trying to arrange a meeting with that your manager's gonna be there, and it's like almost a trap situation. I don't think that's probably a great idea, just because it's like, oh, I thought we were just like meeting up, me and you, and then there's this like random guy, and you're gonna try to pitch me something. Not a big fan of that. Happens. But other like events and stuff, it's like if people know that you do sales and whatever, and you invite them to an event, I think that's fine. So typically they'll invite you to something and eventually talk to you about it. Um, if you've ever been approached to do anything like uh, network marketing wise, so the big one is the the like beauty products and the supplements. I forget what that company's called, or something. It's not Orlando, but they do that. Also, Patrick Bet David's insurance company, lots of insurance people do that as well as their means of gaining reps. Lots of companies do it. Network marketing is a legitimate way to market and to build a sales force. I am not saying it's right or wrong. I would probably lean towards like it's actually, like I said, it's legitimate. It's fine as long as everyone kind of knows what they're getting into. So you'll get invited to this and they'll talk about it. So what do you plan to do for the summer? Oh, most people, especially if they're college kids, are like, oh, I'm just gonna stay back, like work. I got this hooked up. I'm gonna get paid like 15, $20 an hour. Just chill, have fun during the summer, go on dates or whatever. Like the typical Utah like summer thing. I mainly did sales, so I only had really one summer in Utah, and that was my senior year. But I was making money, so it's not as hyped up as everyone talks about it. So the people that say they're gonna miss out on stuff in the summer, it's like honestly, you should probably be focused on making money. That's just my personal opinion. So they'll talk about that. They'll go through the whole thing, and usually it's a series of meetings. Typically, the first meeting is just like introducing them to it. If they haven't heard about it, then it's just a whole intro meeting. But if they've been recruited by other companies, then we'll kind of do the pros and cons and like how our company is different type of a thing, and they'll go over like is this something that you're kind of interested in, and they'll kind of gauge whether you're interested in it or not from like the first meeting. And typically most people are interested just because they show you the numbers. It's like, all right, if you're average, you sell X amount of accounts. At least that's what it was when I was. Now I know they focus on revenue. They'll talk about revenue. If you're literally average, or if you're maybe a little bit below average, then here's the amount of money you can make. They'll always start with that just because, I mean, that's the selling point. Like, you'll make money. And I don't blame them for that. If you pitch anything, you're going to show them, all right, this is how much money you're going to make, or this is how much money the company's going to make. And if you invest in this or whatever, then this is how much you're going to make. That's the whole essence of a sales pitch or pitching anything. So they'll do that and they'll kind of go into the ins and outs. And typically, sometimes in the first meeting or second meeting, a third meeting, you always have questions, and they'll typically just spend the time answering your questions. If you ever served a mission, it's literally like teaching a new person about the gospel, and you're meeting with them regularly, and you're kind of answering. There's kind of a process you're going through, a sales process, a sales pipeline, but it's typically answering any questions that the person has. So you intro, talk about commissions. I don't know what the commissions necessarily are right now. Typically, they start you at least where when I started, it was like anywhere from like 25 is the bare minimum. I'm sure it's probably above that right now because people try to outbid each other on commissions. So it's probably like, I don't know, high 20s to 30 starting off, depending on who you're talking to and what they're talking commission wise. And then anywhere up to, if you're like your second year experienced, then anywhere up to 40 or 50% if you're like really hard, like heavy hitter, then like 50% or even more. So they'll talk to you about that, and they'll talk to you about like the summer and how it works, logistics. I'm not going to get into necessarily all of that specifically right now, maybe a little bit later. And then they'll talk to you about recruiting as well. So it's like that's honestly the big money maker. You can make a lot of money yourself, but I would say if you're kind of in it for the long term, you have to get into recruiting. I know people that don't really, they tend to hop around companies, also hop around different products to maximize their own commissions in whatever product they're selling just because they sell a lot. So they're only going to focus on selling a lot. But if you're going to kind of get into this industry and you want the highest possibility, highest possible earnings or the highest ceiling, then you definitely have to recruit. So people that say it's a pyramid scheme, yes, it is a pyramid scheme, but honestly, my thoughts on that is I don't know any company that's really not a pyramid scheme. Just because the people at the top, they make all the money, they make a percentage off of everyone. Most sales organizations are like that. Obviously, more corporate sales organizations are a little bit different way they do that. But a lot of sales, and even if in corporate, if you recommend someone, they'll typically, if they stay for however X amount of months or they end up being a really good employee, then you'll end up getting maybe not a percentage, well, even a percentage of what that person makes. So even corporate wise, that's all recruiting that happens a lot as well. And the recruiter themselves, even for corporate companies, they'll get either a flat rate or a percentage of whatever the salary of that person is that they find, and the company ends up hiring them. So it happens in corporate as well. So, like I said, pretty much every company's a pyramid scheme in the fact that people at the top probably make the most amount of money, and then you have all the workers at the very bottom doing most of the work. And then you have people in between that manages everything. That's just how companies are run. It's just how it is. So if you know basic economics and basic business practices, that's like most businesses are kind of pyramid schemes. But in the fact that it's more like network marketing, that's when people kind of have a problem with it. It's like, oh, it's just like if you get more people on board, then you make a percentage off of them. At the end of the day, I think it's a relatively good incentive and a good structure, especially if you're very heavy on sales, because it's like at the end of the day, most of the companies they care about sales, and of course, with that comes quality of sales and quality of customers. But at the end of the day, if you sell more, then you're going to make more. And if for the company they sell more, they're going to make more money. They're going to have more revenue, and it's a win-win situation. And also for the people that are managing, it's like they're incentivized to help their sales reps or their team members to do better and for everyone to do well. Just because if everyone does well, then they do well. So I think it's a very fair, very reasonable and logical way to incentivize salespeople. So people that have a problem with it, I don't know necessarily why they have a problem with it. That's just how economics works. And that's how you incentivize people because people aren't going to want to do more or do better performance wise if they're not really incentivized to do it. That's why companies, boards of companies give their executives, the CEO, the CFO, or whatever, they give them stock options. That way it incentivizes the executives to play the long game and to help the company perform well in the long run rather than the short run. Because if they perform well in the long run, stock will go up over time and their options will be worth more. So, like I said, anyone who understands basic business practices and economics, it ends up being a win-win for everyone. So, incentivizing people with increase of revenue and better performance, it's just a no-brainer. I would love to argue someone on that, to be honest. All right, so that's how it works. That's how recruiting works. If you want to get into this industry and you want to make the big bucks, sure, you can be a really good salesman, but if you want to make the big bucks and do all the things that you see that these people that are driving around in supercars and stuff like that, they're all recruiting. They're not the ones actually doing the selling. They're the ones managing the people that are actually doing the selling. Let's be honest. All right. So that's kind of the recruiting aspect of it. And typically, if you kind of get in or you sign, what they do is sign. And what they'll also do is like have you sign an NDA as well. And typically within companies, whoever you kind of like sign the NDA with, they'll typically do it the first meeting. That's kind of like who you are obligated to sell with. So I will say, make sure if you're thinking about it, make sure it's someone that you do definitely would want to sell with before you sign that. Typically, people don't know what they're signing, but that's essentially what it is, and it kind of it's a contract that says if you're going to sell for X company, you will sell under this person. Obviously, they do trades and they'll do exchanges for whatever. But luckily, when I did it, it was under my cousin, and I like if I was going to sell with anyone, I was going to sell with him, so it was no problem. If you know, like, yeah, this person I want to sell with, then go ahead and sign it. But just know that that is what you're signing. A lot of people don't know what they're signing, and yeah, that's just part of being an adult as well. Know what you're signing. All right, so that's that, and then you kind of go through the process, and then that's the NDA, and that's not you officially signing to sell for the summer, and then you eventually get to the contract or whatever, the signing to for you to like, hey, I'm gonna like go out, and if you give like given any incentives, like you're obligated to pay back. It's like typically any bonus, like any sign-on bonus that you get from any company that you say you're gonna work for, they have the right if they put it in writing the right way in the contract, they if you sign for them and you actually don't end up selling with them, but they're giving you a lot of incentives or upfront pay or whatever that before you've actually started the job, then you are obligated legally to pay that back. So bear that in mind. So don't screw someone over just because hey they gave me 5 grand or they gave me this trip or whatever, and I ended up bouncing and I went to this other company because they were giving me a higher commission. Like you could get screwed over. So yeah, don't be that kind of person and takes advantage of people. That's the other side of people that they think they're okay taking advantage of the salespeople because oh they have lots of money, they screw over a lot of people. So like it doesn't matter if I screw them over because they screw so many more people over than are screwing them. So no, don't do that. You're a scumbag if you do. Anyway, so that's the whole process. You sign that, and you eventually go through the training, and depending on who you end up, whose team you end up going with, the training is a little bit different. But I will say, depending on what company, it's typically similar at the same company, and honestly, across all the companies, it's generally the same. They go through the pitch. Hey, depending on what product you use, I only did pest control, so I can tell you what the regiment or the training process is like for security systems or solar. but I would assume it's something somewhat similar. But you go through a lot of trainings. If you're with a really good region, this is what they call it, or team leader, then they'll talk about mindset just because that's a big part of the summer. It's not necessarily, of course, skill comes into it, but a lot of training, repetitions, and honestly, just going out there every day and showing up. To be honest, and just knocking doors. That's like the number one thing that leads to success in this industry in summer sales is if you just go out and knock doors, like as long as you're just not like awful and you somewhat put effort into it, then you're gonna make sales and you're gonna make some money. So there's that training. It's kind of like the 101 about summer sales. So I'm not going to go into any specifics unless there's questions about it. Let me see if there's like I try to look up like FAQs, so like frequently asked questions about it. So there's this one guy on Reddit. He's like recruited. Um, oh, I'll talk about like the what typically like. Obviously, I don't know necessarily the market in the realm now because I've been like 3 years removed from selling, but they'll tell you like the averages. Averages are good. I will say, just from a statistical point, like averages can be skewed by outliers. So people that do really, really, really well, that can skew the average a lot higher, obviously. And obviously, people that do zero can skew the average down. So ask them for the median. That's literally like right in the middle. So that's a better statistical measure of how much you would possibly earn. A big aspect of it as well is kind of the area you're going to. So typically, you don't know that until anywhere from 5 months before to like a couple weeks before you head out for the summer. Just depends. And areas are very different, and so like East Coast is very different from West Coast. It's very much a market based. So I don't know necessarily tips or anything I can say about that. Obviously, you can pretty much sell anywhere. There are some areas that are definitely hit a lot more by summer salespeople in general. So, for example, my first summer was in Texas. It just gets pounded by any type of door to door people. So, people are generally going to be a lot quicker. Places and areas that get lots of door to door salespeople coming to their door, they're going to be quicker with you. They're going to be to the point, say they're not interested, versus somewhere that's kind of new, especially newer developed areas, they're they'll be more susceptible or more like oh, I wouldn't say susceptible. It's a terrible word to say. They're more open to like listening to what you have to hear you out in a sense. A big thing is your team. So who your team leader is, who's like the team leader's manager, the divisional working with your team leader and the other reps on your team. So that's why it's very encouraged to like do it with friends or people that you trust. Just because one, they're probably not going to screw you over. Two, it's going to be way more fun because if you did a mission, at least you had a companion. Doing summer sales, you're literally out there by yourself. So keep that in mind. So having friends on the team is a very good thing, and it makes it a lot more fun. So if you've ever done like a really hard workout or done something very difficult, or even done sports like going through your sports workouts or losing a tough game or anything like that, doing anything hard is way easier with a team of people that you enjoy spending time with and you respect. So I will keep that in mind. Do not join a team full of randos and people that you don't like. So keep that in mind. What else? What else? What else? Oh yeah. So this is my experience. So my first summer, I made like 20,000, oh, close to 20,000, like $18,000. And typically how it's all set up is there will be someone that comes from an accounting firm that will help, like tell you like you should probably set up uh, a certain type of business. That way you get taxed in a fairer way than if you were a sole proprietor. I'm not going to get all the weeds of that because you probably don't understand that. For those of you that do understand that, if you have questions about it, let me know. I'm a little bit more well versed than the average person. But essentially, you create your own like LLC company, and by doing that, you pay less in taxes, and anything you do business wise. So driving out for the summer, wear and tear on your car, gas, food, even recruiting expenses, you can write off on your income and you pay less in taxes. So definitely utilize that. Especially, I think usually the threshold is like if you plan on making more than like $8,000, which the most people, like I'd say 80% of people do that finish out the whole summer. Definitely do that. And I would suggest allowing the accountants to do all that. It's well worth the money paying the accountants to set it up for you to file your taxes and everything because you will save a lot more money than you will spend on that kind of those kind of accounting services. So there's that. As much as possible, I'd say try to stick through it, especially if you're like committed. So you want to make sure you are very committed, especially like right before you go out for the summer, just because there's lots of people that go out and their team leaders either get screwed or like you go out and it's one of those things where it's hard because you're like, I don't know what it is until you actually do the thing. If they provide like blitzes or opportunities to do that beforehand, I would recommend that just because it is a very big investment kind of going out there. If you're going to go out there, I would say stick through it at least for the 3 months that you're going to be out there. Um, and then they also typically have the option if you're just like hating life and sucking, then you can switch to being a service pro. So you do the services instead of selling the services. I would highly recommend that. You'll definitely make a lot more money and you will not waste a bunch of money going out to somewhere for a week and coming back and you owe a lot of stuff or yeah, it's just a bad situation. So at least do that if you're not going to make it through. Um, Typically, I'd say percentage wise, obviously this varies by team of like people that actually make it through the summer versus like quit. There's typically at least like one or two people every single summer I've experienced that have quit, and it just happens. Like it's one of the like I said, it's one of those things that you don't really know what it's like until you're actually doing it. For some people, it's just tough because it's brutal. It's probably one of the hardest jobs ever to do because you're strictly commission based. You're not making any hourly, and you're just out in the sun all day, knocking on doors, and honestly, most like most people to talk to are not happy that you showed up on their door. Let's be honest. So it is very tough in that sense, but there's nothing besides like owning your own business that will compete money wise that you're gonna make. So my 2 cents on it. If I would have to recommend it, obviously I'd recommend it. You learn a lot of great skills. You network with a lot of great people, and you build grit and you build discipline and consistency that will carry on in your future careers and you make good money even if you're like I was nothing special. That's why I'm not doing it anymore because if I was knocking down 200 $300,000 through recruits and stuff, I would highly consider still doing it for sure. uh, but because I was just kind of like average, made 18,000 18K my first summer. Second summer I made around 30. Third summer close to 40. Eh, yeah, it's brutal, but it was worth it during those college years because, like I said, there's nothing else that's gonna even be close to rivaling it other than you're like running your own business, making that kind of money as a college kid. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I would recommend everyone try it at least once. Make sure you're up for the task. If you've kind of done hard stuff in your life, for sure. If you haven't, then maybe I try being a service pro first, and then you can maybe switch over to sales. But it's not for the faint of heart. But I'd say if you have the opportunity to and you think you can do it and you commit yourself to it, I would 100% try it at least for one summer. Other questions, frequently asked questions. So for the people that are like kind of did it for like a couple one summer or maybe a couple summers and you're kind of like, all right, maybe I'm gone through school, I'm kind of like in my junior year, about to like kind of decide my career, maybe possibly looking for jobs after graduation, but it's like it is really nice working like 3 months and making like 50, 60 grand if you're not like a heavy hitter. I will say, just because I know people that are making like multiple six figures with these jobs, and like I said, it's mainly through recruiting. It's not. It's like a decent chunk. Most people that are like pretty good sellers and still recruiting a lot probably make like 100K themselves just from their own sales, but like the extra 200, 300K is through recruits and recruiting people. I will say if you're kind of like like I said, it's I think it's a means to an end for like 90% of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, it is very high turnover, I will say. Every single year, I've kind of known people, unless they're like super high up, and they have just like hundreds of recruits, then the turnover rate doesn't really matter as much. But for the people that are kind of like middle managers, which I can definitely see people getting stuck there, just because they have a bunch of recruits and then half of them leave, and then you have to recruit like 10 or 20 more people. It's a very high turnover rate um, company for people that reps you're looking for, and just keeping high level reps because people's life circumstances change, and typically just naturally people that start having families and stuff that want a little bit more stability, and summer can be really brutal. Like I give my props to people that have families and have kids that are going out every single summer and like selling for 3 or 4 months or 5 or 6 months even, and that's like tough because you're literally working 12 to 13, 14 hour days for like 3 months straight. Occasionally, yeah, you'll get like Saturdays half off, half days or whatever, but still most of the day. It's tough. So I will say if you're knocking down like good money, like definitely over 100K, then I mean, why not stick with it and see kind of where it takes you? I will say, like I said, there's pros and cons to everything. There's pros and cons to what I did. I will say the pros are you can make a lot of money and there's very low barrier to entry, and for a lot of people it's really nice. Like you just work, you go ham, you go super hard for like 3 or 4 months out of the year, and then you can chill or like obviously some people still work and stuff, but you don't have to go 100% full throttle every single day for the rest of the 9 months of the year. So that is one thing that a lot of people like. Me specifically, I like kind of just like continually working throughout the whole year. So maybe not going like 100% all the time, obviously, but I probably like go like 80%. So that kind of life didn't really fit me very well because I was very much that person's like I wanted to get a job after or get a job like while I'm not selling during the summer type of thing. And I'm totally like one of those people who are like, I don't really want to do this right now. So like I'm fine taking a couple of days off. But you take a couple of days off, that means less sales. So it's like directly correlated with the more hours you work, the more money you're going to make. Unless you leverage it and you get reps and you're focused on recruiting, which was what I was trying to focus on. But I didn't really make it big. Let's see. So those are kind of the pros. I will say, yeah, like I said, if you're knocking down over 6 figures, then like might as well stay with it. I do think it does reach a point. So, for example, if you're like starting to have kids or whatever, and this is where it can kind of get you in trouble in the sense that even if you graduate and stuff, and if you know you don't want to do sales and you're not like a heavy hitter and you're not knocking down big money, then I would suggest, hey, doing it for the 3 or 4 years or whatever, and then maybe keep helping with recruiting or something, but like eventually pivot into something else. Just because you can very easily, and I've seen people do this as well. If you're like not like a huge fan of sales, but you're like tend to be like pretty good at it, and you're making decent money, like over 6 figs, but you're not like killing it per se, and then maybe find a girl and get married or whatever. Yeah, I would. It's. I think it's fine to pivot, and you probably should look towards pivoting because it's like I said, if you're having to go out every single summer, it's tough, it's rough, and in the long run, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, um, just because it's directly linked to your effort that you put in. So that's kind of what I think about it. And you can somewhat pigeonhole, like I said, if you're not really in love with sales and love it, you can pigeonhole yourself. So, for example, say you got like accounting degree or economics or finance or something. Just become I'm familiar with that. Um, if you're like 4 years from being graduated and you're then like at that point you're like trying to pivot into like something you graduated in, they'll look at your resume and be like, why didn't you like do something earlier in the field? They'll be less likely to hire you. And if you're like 30 something year old and it's like doing entry level, like you're not going to want to do that either, and you're not going to be incentivized, and that's probably what you're going to have to get, just because you've been making like over six figures and you don't have any experience in the field that you graduated in. So you can pigeonhole yourself into some sales position, and then you'll probably have to go do another sales position because that's what you have experience with. Don't have any real world experience, work wise, professional experience for the thing you actually graduated in. That's probably not sales. And honestly, if you're doing sales, don't do that in school because you don't need school to do sales. So if you're like sold on doing sales and you're like, this is just what I want to do, then have at it. You can easily pivot into another sales job. But if it's like something you're not like don't get me wrong, I love sales. Like I like sales, and I like the way that's like you can leverage your time and it directly is linked to your effort, and you can make more money if you work more. But then there's downsides to that as well. I'm very efficient. I'm very efficient, and I don't want to say salespeople are dumb because they're definitely not dumb. But I like to leverage and create systems, aka marketing, eventually to the point where it's like I don't have to be the one selling. I can do the highest productivity stuff, and I can get systems to do all the hard work for me. So I make things efficient. That's what I do. That's why I love spreadsheets and automating stuff. Just because that's kind of the way things are going as well in technology. So if you're not making huge money, I'd say pivot earlier than later because you could possibly get stuck, especially if you're not in love with sales. But if you're loving sales, like have at it, keep going with it because, like I said, you can always pivot to another sales position. I'm trying to think if there's any other frequently asked questions for the people that think it's like a scam or anything. It's not. Obviously, there are sketchy people. So like I said, do it with someone you trust and someone you genuinely know, not necessarily some random person. Um, People that say it's like too good to be true, it's not too good to be true because of all the effort and hard work you have to put into. Uh, those people are like I said, the truth is always in the middle. The people that are like it has no faults, probably wrong. People that are like it has all faults and there's no good things about it are definitely wrong as well. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. So there's a lot of people that say it's like too good to be true, like not worth your time, like it's a scam. Those people are wrong. So take advice and knowledge and information like I'm trying to do from someone who actually did it instead of honestly these are probably people that one probably got screwed over because they didn't do it with someone. And to be fair, it's probably because of the lack of information. So if they had something like this, they would know and be smarter about it. And then two, they probably this is obviously just an assumption, but they probably sucked and quit and didn't finish the summer and ended up getting screwed over because they signed a contract, an agreement to stay and work, and they ended up having to pay the rent, and that's why they think it's a scam. Um, let's see. Yeah, if anyone else has any questions in the description or put them in the comments or whatever. Like I said, if anyone's thinking about doing it, send them this video so they can check it out, kind of get all the information about it. That way they can make a good informed decision. I am all about giving people information and bear in mind, I love it. My old regional Donnie Mosier, law of diminishing returns. He always talks about this. Like it's good to have information. You need to have information to make an informed decision, but like an overload of information, you don't need 100% of the information to make a decision. So you will have some like I don't know about this or maybe I don't know about that. You're never going to have 100% of the information, and even if you get close towards the 100% of the information, it's not going to lean you one way or the other. So just have enough information to like make a well-educated decision, and you're never going to get 100% of the information, and then make a decision. And don't be that person who just kind of like mooches off these salespeople for like free food and stuff. Like no one really likes that. Like I've had friends that kind of did that. It's like, oh, I'm meeting, like yeah, I'm like say they're interested in stuff, but they're actually not, and they're just trying to get a free meal. Don't be that person. But if they're offering and you've said up front, like honestly, dude, I'm like not interested. And they're like, yeah, just come anyway. Then have at it. Feel free to. That's kind of the gist. Sorry, I was like all over the place. I typically kind of have things written down or a set agenda schedule that I'll of things I'll talk about, but I've kind of wing. I wouldn't say wing this one. I kind of knew some stuff I wanted to talk about, but I didn't have any set list of topics I was going to talk about. Let's see what else is there. Yeah, that's about it. And like I said, I'm a big proponent of it. I think if you are committed and you have the opportunity to and have a good team, and obviously you're gonna have doubts and stuff, but try it out. Try it out for the summer. And like I said, the summers in Utah, they're not worth like giving up a good opportunity for. So for if you're one of those people who are like, oh, but like I could meet my future wife or like whatever, like, dude, your future wife's gonna appreciate you like having enough money to buy her a ring. Let's be honest. Like rather than meeting her in the summer and then you can't afford a ring and stuff, like go make some money. That's just my personal opinion. So take it with a grain of salt, like I said. But uh, people that do say that, they're like, oh, it's just an excuse, and yeah, they just don't want to do it because I mean, all numbers. I'm a very logical person, so I saw the numbers and just kind of like, all right, yeah, it's like better than any job I'm gonna do. Like, I don't really have to worry about getting an internship at the moment. So yeah, like, well, why not? Logical. But make sure you pick a good team leader. You have teammates that you actually enjoy and you'll enjoy during the summer. And it's a grind. Don't get me wrong, but like anything in life, it takes hard work to get something that's valuable and a valuable experience out of it. So I'll leave it at that. Catch y'all later. I need to eat dinner. I'm starving. Tomorrow's Friday. Excited for that. And I'm going to try to keep it up with the content and the streams. Like I said, I've been lacking. Um, but we'll keep it up. All for y'all. As with everything, trying to help you guys get stronger, smarter, healthier, wealthier. So go ahead, fall for more tips, fall for more lives. Always stay pumped. All right. Catch y'all later. Peace. Cue the outro.